Today. Nice to see the full table here. No, not quite. And welcome to the members of the public that are watching via the live stream. Would you like to send a message to please? Welcome to everybody out there and to staff that are with us today. Everybody's got their phones on silent. Do not disturb, so thank you for that. And we'll start off with the opening karakia, which I guess I'm reading.
Spread around.
Would anybody else like to do the karakia? Sorry, before I just do it. The enthusiasm is absolutely mind-blowing. Right, okay. Kia hora te reino, kia whakapapa panamu te moana. Hei hur hei mā tātou, ai te reini nei, araha atu, araha mai, tātou ie, tātou katoa, hui e, taki e. From there, moving on to apologies, we have none because we have a full table today, so we will move on to declarations of interest, which everybody is now starting to understand how it works, and thank you for updating your register. Thank you, Councillor Maitland and Councillor Munns, for what you've included in there. Go in there at any stage because there may be something, a trigger point you think, actually maybe I should have this on the register. So it's a living document. You can go in at any time and make an amendment there. So thank you for that. Next on the agenda we have the urgent items. There are no urgent items to be added, and I'll be providing a verbal update on what I've been doing with the last 4 weeks at item 7 on the agenda. From there we move on to minutes of meetings. Minutes of meetings to be confirmed, and the first is the inaugural council meeting minutes of 23rd October 2025, which are pages 6 to 12 in your agenda. And I'm after a mover and a seconder, please. We may resolve that the minutes of the inaugural council meeting held on 23rd October 2025 be confirmed as a true and correct record of the meeting. Sorry, Councillor Gillette, Councillor Martin, thank you. All in favour? Against? Carried, thank you. Now, following that, I as the Mayor wish to clarify that the statement made at the inaugural council meeting on 23rd October relating to me using a casting vote at the 24th of July council meeting to pass a resolution to the future delivery of water services report was actually incorrect. The motion was carried by way of show of hands, 5 votes for the motion and 3 votes against the motion, hence my casting vote was not used as was indicated that it had been. We can clarify that, we can support that information if anybody requests it. There was 8 votes recorded there. Councillor Phelps was an apology for the day, which makes 9 councillors. But I would like that recorded, please, officially, because that was a slight on how that voting process happened. So following the signing off of the inaugural council meeting minutes of 23rd October, I approve that my digital signature be added to the confirmed ordinary council meeting minutes of 23rd October 2025. Next, we have the minutes of meetings to be received. The first of those is page 13 to 15, Hokitika Wastewater Treatment Plant Project Oversight Committee of 2nd April 2025. And again, I'm after a mover and seconder so that we can resolve that the minutes of the Hokitika Wastewater Treatment Plant Project Oversight Subcommittee held on 2nd of April 2025 be received. Thank you, Councillor Goodin. Councillor Maitland, thank you very much for that. And the second lot of minutes are the ordinary council meeting minutes of 25 September 2025. And again, I'm after a mover and a seconder, please, so that we may resolve that the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on 25th of September 2025 be received. Councillor Gillette, thank you. Councillor Munns, thank you very much, everybody, for that. From there, we move on to the action list, which is page 30 to 32, and I ask Barb Phillips, our Chief Executive, to speak to the action list, please.
Thank you, Chair. The action list goes through by item. The first item is around providing some information that we were hoping to be able to complete, put out to the community following the last triennium around looking at the earthquake strengthening for this building, 36 that needed to be updated. We're still working through that. There's a little bit more information we're just waiting for to come back to that. So once I've got that information, I'll be able to complete the paper and bring that back to the council first before we take it out for any community consultation, so that people will have a view, because obviously the last triennium was where the genesis of that paper was. And I'm looking to do that early in the new year. I was thinking of February, with January already being a bit full, so I thought February was their paper. In terms of the second item, and I'm happy to take questions as we go through or at the end, whatever folks feel. The second item is about the Museum Trust Board and around the paper being developed, the terms of reference. We've got the General Manager now ensconced in the building, and that work is continuing, and that can come back for conversation with you folk. I think, Paul, that she will be reaching out to have a conversation with you before it's circulated for the rest of the council, because we're committed to having a conversation. With that, item 3 is the Hokitika CBD strategy. As we go through the confirmation of the committees, etc., that committee will be able to be stood up. That's on the agenda today. I would say we are looking to widen the brief from not just the Hokitika CBD, but actually to look at the Kamara and Franz components as well. So we have a more comprehensive thinking about how our strategy should look. The Hokitika Racecourse development that is on the quarterly update is on today's agenda, which will be presented. The item around Lake Canary, a noting paper, has been included in these papers for this meeting and will be discussed through the agenda, which is providing the overview of the work that we do at a district council level in collaboration with the regional council who do the monitoring, to provide some assurance about that management of that development is in hand, but that will be discussed in that noting paper this year. The Hokitika Westland site, that requires a paper to be brought back for you for consideration. Again, I'm relatively happy to do that. I was thinking probably February, March, because I believe some of the subcommittees might want to feed into that, the working groups might want to feed into that one. So probably February, March for that one, so that you've got the full picture. And that's the completion of the action plan.
Thank you, Barb, for that. Any questions on the action plan? If there's no questions, Barb has other updates and points to talk to.
No, I'll do this.
You want to do it then? Okay, sorry, we won't do that, Paul.
Through your worship, in relation to Kapi Waitoa and the government's new seismic strengthening rules. So will that report obviously will review all that, and this building in relation to that as well.
Yes, it's relevant because of the strengthening work that we were looking to do for this building, and then looking at the overlay of the new earthquake strengthening processes and levels. I wanted to make sure that everyone had the most up-to-date information, so we're just waiting for that to come back. I'm ready to do that, but it will be over both, yes.
Thank you. And then further to that, where is the council with the reassessment of other buildings around, in particular in town?
Of strengthening?
Yes.
I think there has been some work that we've looked at, but we don't generally do that work if they're not council-owned buildings. We haven't been doing that. Would you like the more generic update on what's happening for owners in the district around that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we can certainly bring that back to you, give you an update on what's happening across the area.
Specifically in relation to St Mary's Church, please.
St Mary's Church? We'll make sure that's included in an update. So we can bring that back to the December meeting as a noting paper for you. So that's all right?
Yeah.
Thank you. And sorry, Councillor Perez.
Sorry.
Through your worship. So the work on the council for headquarters obviously is now going to be affected by the simplifying local government proposal. So that will need to be included in the future assessment of council headquarters, I guess.
Through the chair, I think it's a valid point, but it's probably part of the discussion. Your paper's going to give you the background and the levels of strengthening and what's required. The discussion around whether or not the next steps are needed is for the council to have once it's got that information in front of it, but it will be part of the discussion, I would imagine.
Good point. Good point. Anything further for Barb on that case? So can I have a move for seconder, please, so that we may resolve that the updated action list from the Chief Executive be received and items completed to be removed from the list or noted for next report time frame. Move for seconder, please. We put his hands up consistently. So Councillor Walker and Councillor Collette, please. Thank you. Thanks, guys. All in favour of receiving the report?
Aye.
Thank you. Next on the list is the presentations, and that's just my monthly update. It's in note format as far as not extrapolated out, and that is since the day after our last council meeting, but also noting on that that Councillor Lunns has attended a meeting, a community meeting at Friends Joseph that I couldn't make. There's another meeting missed in my head as well, sorry. But yeah, so that's sort of a bit of an indication. I've got attended as far as the top ones attended are more the sort of general meetings that I can end up attending and being a part of, or the part of the patronage as the mayor that I attend some of these, like Heritage Hokitika. Official meetings, they don't all carry minutes because some of them are appointments that I make with ministers and or leaders and sit down and discuss certain issues or topics or things we're driving for. And then the public events, because that's quite a continual invite stream of what I do in the weekend or the evening, so there needs to be time attending to community requests. Councillor Mackenzie, sorry.
Through the chair, any feedback on the Air New Zealand event that you went to from them? So
the Air New Zealand event I went to was to officially acknowledge Nick Hill, the new Chief Executive into there, which was really good, and he gave an insight on his direction of lead going forward from Air New Zealand. And we were also joined by the Prime Minister and a lot of ministers, as well as MPs, because Wellington was sitting at the time under urgency, so they were all there. They came out for the short break, so we take advantage of situations like that to rock up to some of them, and then some of them sort of rock up to you for what's happening with this and what's happening with that. So but from that I did have discussions with Minister Jones, Minister Upson and Minister Meager regarding the different things that I've got on those items, and with invites that they come back for further discussions to hear. But some of that work with Minister Upson around, because she's the tourism minister, that reverts back to the work that me as Chesney we are doing regarding the international visitor levies too. So it's just good to be in the area, and also of course with Knight's Point with that announcement, although I've already spoken to the Minister Meager about, and Minister Brown, because he was the first minister I started with. It's always good to acknowledge them in person when they're there, and talk about that, and talk about other work that's going to run from that.
because a lot of the community are quite frustrated with the amount of flights that are cancelled at our airports. Is the new airport upgrade going to mitigate them happening in the future, do you think?
It's not as simple as that, because quite often it's mechanical. It's not just they don't want to fly here or there's not enough bumps on seats. If a plane doesn't go from Wellington or Palmerston North or Blenheim to Christchurch, because that's where our interlinking planes come from, so if one of those doesn't take off, that's not there to then fly from Christchurch to here. So that is primarily our main issue. In saying that, in the last 12 months we've had less cancellations than we've experienced previously, and we've had actually less across the board of the other regional airports around the country. So there is an attempt to try and improve that, and with that, I have asked, Air New Zealand's in a position now with the losses they've carried and looking at regional airports, they are reviewing a lot of that. And so with that, we also had Air New Zealand management here on Tuesday to talk about our regional airport and discuss those situations. We've also got landing fees, we've also got a lot of those other things that we need to talk about. So we've invited them to come down and we sit down and actually look at the airport and how we manage this going forward as far as all those costs and impacts. So we've got a really good working relationship with them. And I think we're quite fortunate with that because they also are well aware that there is no other airport option for the coast. And we're also trying to get the information from the mining sector, Radius Care for the build up here, and all other entities that use the airport for an idea of projected use. And that, a lot of that comes down to reliability of the airport. If the air flights become reliable, then we'll see some increases in seats. So Air New Zealand need that as well for looking at what they're doing. So it's an ongoing conversation with them. Councillor Doodle.
Through the chair, two things. I think Ewan raised a good point there, and I think we should have a bit of a briefing on the scope of the airport project to bring elected members up to speed on that. We received one update from the project some time ago. Haven't received any more, but I think to bring elected members up to speed so they understand the scope of the project and what that project's planning to achieve. Also, I think this list is great being shared with us. Are you planning to share it publicly so the public understand how busy you are?
Yes.
Great.
Let's not as busy as I can be, but yes. And very valid, thank you, Councillor Burdett, about the airport project. Earl will take note of that because we can touch briefly on the funding of that, how that works and what is happening because the tenders have now gone out. Earl's now engaged in the next process of that and timeframe. So we'll bring that to a report because it'd be good for you guys to have that going forward. It's quite a sizable project. And it's, yes.
Through the chair, and that will, what process do we start letting the community know about what's happening up there?
At the airport?
After the tender has been...
We can let them know at any time.
Okay.
There's a few stages of tendering. We've now got our designing consultants engaged. They'll work you through a program of actual physical design and what we're doing up there, all the scoping work. That's reached just about at its final point now, and then we're going to go to tender early next year.
But you're quite right, what you're saying, so this as we can, we need to keep those stories fresh and alive and active for the...
It's been not a lot going on, like a duck on top of the water, but now you will start seeing stuff going out to tender, so...
To capitalise on those sorts of things.
Yep. Now that we've got a story to start putting out there with that, it's the same with the racecourse development there, the tar seal's gone down now. So I've been talking to them about having an open day up there where there's information there, people can walk around and have a look and it's good to people want to do that.
Just through the chair, I know that we did do the press release when we first got the funding for the airport upgrade and talked about what opportunities there were. I wonder if there is a wider opportunity, Chair, to actually work with colleagues at Air New Zealand, Destination Western to doing the airport, to talk not only about what the upgrade will do, but some of the things that they're doing to help with confidence for not only businesses, but the local folk to use the airport and use that with some confidence. So we'll have a look to see what we can do to bring that together as a release to go out. I think that would be really good.
Absolutely, thank you both for that. Excellent. Any other questions regarding my report, Greg? Sorry, Councillor Murphy.
Yeah, through the chair. Has there been any more movement on the issues down at Haast with local issues regarding the water?
Thank you, because I was going to raise it, but I can do it now with you, Greg. So in terms of one of the things that I thought might be useful is to get, because there's been an issue about water and how it's treated and what are the opportunities and what are the perhaps unintended consequences that could happen, and I think it's been a long-going process. What did become very apparent was that Tim Hedigan, from the water agency, the water agency, has asked whether or not he could do a brief presentation to the council, particularly about where local waters are treated and what could be done and what needs to be done and what happens if you don't do it. And I thought that would be a really good opportunity for us collectively. It's a half-hour presentation, and it would also help with the folk that have raised the issue, I thought, that we could brief that it's going to be available on the live stream, and they can also watch it, so it gives a bit more evidence-based as to what's happening with that. It doesn't mean that we don't have a conversation, but I just thought that would be a helpful point to bring forward. So I'm happy to organise that, and I think we could probably do it in the December meeting if he's available. If that's
Appealing to everybody, because I know we've agreed, we've got Haas in particular, and in the Harry community talking about their water. And so it's good to get the full understanding of requirements and why they're there, because it will help how we respond and how we manage this going forward, because it is quite a complex situation. It's not a matter of just pulling out a paper form and saying, well, you're good to go, this risk. So we'll bring that forward with you with Tim, because Tim's he was originally mayor of Otago, now gone into water services. Just as another touch on that, inaugural council, my report, is the Jackson Bay funding. I also want to acknowledge and thank Deputy Mayor Burden and Councillors Mums and Rhaenyra for travelling with me down to Haas for that. They got an insight into my road trips and how they work, which means stopping and checking the toilets and places where camper vans are parking up, and just stopping ad lib and having people bail you up on the side of the road, or recognising and calling out, and then having a little meeting on the side of the window. And then meeting the announcement at Jackson Bay. There would be close to 30 people there, well attended, and MPI were there pulling people up at the same time for crayfish misdemeanor, which was interesting and good to see. So out of the 20 crayfish they caught, they actually had to go and release 11 of them back into the water, and MPI observed them doing it, stood over them while they did it. They were too big. So it's good to know that that's alive and kicking down there as far as activity and managing that. So it was a really good trip. A lot of conversations had and a lot of feedback, and a lot of things came back with us all. So if anybody else wants to come on a road trip with me to anything like that in the future, I'm happy to take you, but be prepared. If you go to unusual places looking at different things.
Do you eat crayfish?
Do I eat crayfish?
Did you get some crayfish?
I was supposed to stop at somebody's place on the way back and pick some up, but time was against us, so I didn't. So I'm picking it up this weekend.
6 days whether I want to join you.
We have a new fishing charter boat there that's ready to take us out for a trip. So thanks guys for for coming with that, and also those sort of things the community just appreciates so much, having not just me but the four of us there to talk to, and it's that visual contact that shoot, they are here and this is happening. So it is a really good thing to do. So there will be a lot of other trips down there, Joseph. So
yeah, I think it's important to keep the South Westland involved, and have, I mean, you guys are obviously very visible, but to have other councillors and the mayor down there is critically important.
I'm down there a lot on my own personal time as well, so officially it is good, it is certainly good. So, and of course afterwards we had coffee, put on tea and coffee at the Cray Pot there for our guests. So that was good, but anybody wanted to feed that had to pay for that themselves. But and they were very pleased to see us too, because they get impacted by that road closure that happens with the slips down there. So we had some good conversations with them around that as well. So that's my update. It doesn't require signing off or anything, or accepting. So from there we'll move on to staff reports, and first up we have the draft annual report for 24-25 for adoption, and we'll pass over to Stephen as our Chief Financial Officer to provide that report. Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you, Your Worship. As we've obviously spoke about earlier on, so obviously this is a historic report looking back to the 2024-25 financial year, and obviously most councillors weren't actually in their positions at that period. So it's unfortunate timing that one of the first things you have to do is adopt the annual report for a period that you didn't really have much to do with. Unfortunately, that's just government legislation, and obviously the Local Government Act stipulates that we have to adopt over this time period, so it's always a bit difficult where it's a new triennium and there's been an election year. Hopefully the auditor's report back earlier gave comfort that yes, there are some items that we need to address, but generally the accounts were a fair statement of the financial operations of the council, that we obeyed all legislation, and it's a true reflection of the accounts. So as Bob said, I think the plan would be that we would look to do a workshop in January, so we can do a bit of a deep dive, which we're planning to do on the draft annual plan for next year, but we can also look back at this report and answer maybe any questions there if there's something that's not clear or you'd like to go into more detail. That being said, if there's anything burning questions today that you'd like me to kind of address that I can look at, then I'm happy to take questions.
We'll go over Riley. You want to have any questions for Stephen?
No questions.
Right, so let's just come back to the Councillor Maitland?
I've got a lot. I think it'd be probably better for me to wait until January, because there's a lot that needs to get explained to lay people.
Yes.
And also, if the report goes out to the public, a lot to be put into more plain English that people can understand the terminology and some of the points. I think for the layperson would have difficulty actually getting an idea what's going on.
Yes, through the chair, so the annual report needs to be published in its format, but we could look at, to do a covering note to kind of explain and do some high-level breakdowns on it. That would be helpful as well. So, yeah.
I've got a bunch of questions. I'm happy to leave them for the workshop, just for time.
Would it be helpful if perhaps those, sorry Kel, if those questions went to you, Stephen, so you had an idea of what information you had to bring? Yeah, so maybe an idea there, guys, for that. Sorry, Councillor Martin.
I had lots of questions, but as I read more of the report, I was finding the answers anyway, so good.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gillette.
Through the chair, I'm fine. The report is just a statement of fact, so I'm happy with what's been presented.
Councillor Manera. Councillor Munns.
I'm happy just to wait.
Councillor McKenzie.
I can defer my questions till January.
Okay, Paul? No questions? Right, so with no questions, you've got off that. So the resolution is that the report be received and that council adopt the annual report for the financial year ending 30 June 2025 as provided in Appendix 1. Do I have a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Manera, thank you very much. Councillor Gillette, all in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you everybody very much for that. Do we need to sign them now? Right, okay. So with that being signed off, I now have some, Bob and I both actually have some official letters that we need to sign off as part of that, and that needs to be done at this meeting. So if everybody can bear with me for 2 seconds while that happens. It must happen in this process. And witnessed by the Chief Executive. And signed also by the Chief Executive along with myself. So I've got to do that section. Yes, Paul.
Thank you very much. Just excuse myself.
That's all right. Thank you very much for that. Yes, you've got to send those away right now, don't you?
Yes, we do. Yeah, it's a very fast process, so yeah, it needs to go to audit immediately.
Yep. So this is quite standard. We accept it.
Monumental.
Signed off.
Yes.
Yes,
Well done.
very much so. Thank you very much, everybody, for that. Yes, yes.
Sorry, I just realised Stephen's out of the room. I did just want to say thank you to the teams that have pulled together the annual report. It's always a big piece of work. It's challenging. we are hoping that during the annual planning going forward, we will have a more streamlined process for the annual report, which is the gathering of the information to close off the annual plan. But, sorry, in his absence, I'll thank him afterwards anyway, but it's also for the team that did it, because everybody gets engaged with it, so it's a lot of work. So I'd just like to thank
Thank
him
you.
on behalf of,
Absolutely, thanks, Barb. And it is, it's, apart from all the day jobs, there's a huge amount of work that goes into these reports, and the reports, and working through with the auditors as well. So I know they put in a massive hours at this time of the year. Thank you, Barb, for that. So before we move on to the next staff report, I've just had it pointed out to Natasha that seeing as I handed out a written document, I do need to ask for a move and a second to please that we receive my update. Thank you, Councillor Maitland. Councillor Martin, thank you very much. All in favour to that? Thank you, everybody. Right, so next on the staff reports, we have standing orders, clause 15, public forum. The topic, pages 33 to 37 in your agendas, and I will hand over to our Chief Executive to speak to this, please.
I think there was quite a bit of discussion when we went through the standing orders about how we could streamline and bring people into the public forums within the council meetings, and you tasked me to go and have a look what best practice might look like across councils. I'm very grateful that staff engaged with 66 councils to have a look at just getting a stock take about what's been done. Interestingly enough, I have to say that they were fairly consistent in their approach. Definitely 5 minutes is an acceptable process for people to come and talk. What probably changed a little bit was the time before the council meetings. It needed to be the topics needed to be submitted to the council, and it varied from about 24 hours to a day, working day, to then 3 days, a couple on 5 days, and then only 1 or 2 on 7 days. So the recommendation that I've made through this paper to you to consider is that we hold the 30 minutes into the front end of each of the meetings, and that 5 minutes is allocated for people to present or bring up their topic. I would suggest, and I didn't write it explicitly in the paper, but I would suggest that we allow 5 minutes for you to respond to whatever that is, if you wanted to, because I would limit it to probably 3 people per meeting, so that you have a chance to hear them. I don't think you can have people present for less than 5 minutes, to be honest, if they're going to feel that they're open and able to speak, and then a little bit of a margin for you to respond if you wanted to would be useful. So that's a suggestion I've made, plus the fact I believe that operationally we can manage the 24 hours because it's just putting the topics on the table. I think previously there was some discussion about how that would happen, but I think it's doable. And I would suggest that what we will be doing is they get submitted to either the mayor or to me, and I don't know if that comes through you or directly from the public, but then we have a register and we just work our way through it, because some people may not be able to make the dates of the meeting, etc. I did advise the mayor there was some concern that if people didn't turn up or there was nobody wished to talk at a meeting, then it's perfectly acceptable to not wait the 30 minutes and just close that part of the meeting and go straight into the formal meeting. So you won't be held up by that, but I'd suggest you probably get quite good feedback from folk around this. So I think it's we can see how it works. If we find that there's a problem with it, we can iron out the wrinkles as we go, but I think you're best placed in terms of the 5 minutes, in terms of 24 hours before. I have left the chairperson's discretion in the briefing, but then the councils that we looked at did that as well. So it's almost like a fallback.
And just as a follow-up to what Barb has just said, I know previously, whether it's been at submission time or when we have had people from the public coming in, talking to us and presenting, I've always allowed 5 minutes for questions afterwards, and if we haven't needed that 5 minutes, then we'll move on to the next one. Because generally, I don't think we've had one person yet where there hasn't been questions or engagement about what they've presented to us, so it is good to allocate that time in there. So I'm going to run around the table for comments, please, councillor Burden.
Yep, support, absolutely support the public forum and like the idea of having that 5 minutes for engagement. I think that's really important because we don't want to sit here and listen to 6 people crammed into half an hour and then no engagement with that and you go away thinking who said what, how did that all just happen? So no, more than happy to support it. Thank you, Barb, and your team for going away and doing that extensive research. I think that was a great piece of work. And yeah, happy, very happy.
Yeah, no, good. It's similar to Greg. Yeah, so this is great. My only question would be, is 24 hours enough time? All the information together, because I've got to send them what they want to talk about. Is it long enough? I don't know.
I think the approach has been that people will put in a topic. So if it's a topic that's on the agenda, it's there. I think previously there was a belief that perhaps we had to do some paperwork to support that. But with the 5-minute presentation and 5-minute response, if you need to do any further deeper dive onto that particular topic, if the councillors feel that that's appropriate, we should put that forward to the next meeting and then have a proper paper presented. I think that's the best way, so people can feel that they're being heard.
Yeah, no, I'm good. It's great.
Thank you, councillor Maitland.
Yes, I fully support it, and I think it's a great step in the right direction, and it's sort of an indication of where the new council is. I fully support it.
Thank you. Councillor Walker.
I definitely support it. I would say that if we allow that 30 minutes, we should be flexible. If the Lima person shows up and they want a bit more than 5 minutes, or we need a bit more 5 minutes to dive into what they're saying, we be able to use that 30 minutes. Can I just clarify something? The agenda comes to councillors 7 days before meeting, but it goes on the website two days. Is there any reason why the public doesn't also get 7 days to absorb what we're going to be discussing and then maybe have more than 24 hours to decide whether they want to come speak?
It's the timing that's been accepted through the process.
Is that something we could possibly look at? Because if we want to include the public and invite them to come and speak to issues, I think we put it out 48 hours before, they've got 24 hours to hustle, apply to come speak. Like, if we're getting it 7 days in advance, it just doesn't.
We can look at how we balance it out.
Yeah, and and make the community know that we're making that change as part of our transparency.
I did wonder whether or not, through the chairman, we should have almost like a register that could be seen, so when people want to come and talk about a topic, other people could see that that was it.
That's a great idea.
But I'd just quite like to work out how we do that, because some people may not want to be quite so visible in terms of their discussion. So we'll find a balance somewhere, but I think that might be useful too.
And just as a follow-up to your comment there, councillor Walker, is that as a councillor, you need that 7 days because you're reading and involvement and seeking follow-up information, whether needs to be recognised with that time frame. Which you generally find is that the members of the public will go through it and look for catch words, catch terms, catch anything with the title to what is they're wanting to talk to. We actually find that when people do come in and talk to us, and I've already got somebody that wants to come next month, is that it's nothing to do with what's on the agenda. It's other things that are main things. So we've just got to be fairly general with that. But it's something we can perhaps trial and see. Because it does come down to the staff and the roles that bind us as to what's released when too. Councillor Martin.
Fully endorse the, I mean, already people are really keen to be involved with the whole or something. It's live streamed as well. Is it part of the part of this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, fully support it. It's a good move. I think the guidelines are a good start. If they need tweaking, we'll adjust accordingly. I think, from my perspective, it's the start of a new culture of engagement and openness, and I think hopefully we'll get comfortable with this first step, and that will lead to other initiatives to include the public and what happens here. So yes.
Thank you. Councillor Monero.
I'll just wait to see, and best of luck with it, eh?
Councillor Munns.
I fully support it. I think think it's great, and it's great for communication between us and the public, so, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor McKenzie.
I think it's a good workup by Barb. The only query I have would be if they ask a question, will they ask it through the chair or will they ask it direct to the councillor? Or will her worship direct the
I
question?
direct it.
Okay.
I direct. It comes through the chair and it's directed where it needs to go.
Okay.
Because sometimes we end up having to call on staff to answer, but a
So
question?
sorry, Your worship. In that regard, will we get advance notice of the topics that are being spoken so we can get genned up?
I was thinking about that, and I thought if we could make the register open so people could see what's coming, that would be helpful. But I have no problem with circulating what's coming on the agenda when you get your papers, you know, if I can, send those well. Or I just flip around an email and say, look, because if it's only 24 hours ahead, unless they're on the register and we're going through them, I'm more than happy just to see something around and say, look, the topics that have come up for this one will be this, and you can, you know, I'm happy if you want to come back and talk to us, or actually you want to just brief up on it.
Because it's important if they've done their research and they're speaking, that we're educated enough to give them a sort of response and something like that.
Yeah, sometimes you can't, because sometimes they might give you the key points what they're going to talk about, but they'll be working on that. Sometimes you see them actually working on it even when they're sitting there waiting to speak. So some of it's quite ad hoc as far as, you know, what they're actually wanting out of what they're presenting on. So a lot of it is actually listening to what they've got to say, asking questions for clarity, and also looking at whether we need to follow something up with a report and forms releasing to council, or whether there's a further conversation required with them, or whether they need to actually have communication with one of the senior exec team members that needs to quantify something with them, you know, precisely. So yeah, there's a bit of variance in it, but you'll get your head around once we get to the first couple of these quite quickly. But they are received well, and yeah, as I say, I've already got 2 presentations waiting for December's meeting, so one in particular is already booked in. Paul? Nothing further to add? Great. Okay, so is everybody happy with that? Is there anything further for questions following the responses? Right, so that's wonderful. So the resolution is that the report be received and that a period of up to 30 minutes be available for the public forum at each scheduled ordinary council meeting. Speakers can speak up to 5 minutes, excluding questions. And I can read out all of the information that's in there if everybody wants. So is everybody quite happy that they've read the request to speak in a public forum must be? Chairperson has discretion too. Everybody want that read out now for reminder's sake? Is everybody happy with what they've
It's
read?
important you read it out so the public.
All right. Yep. Okay. So it'll be for a period of up to 30 minutes be available for the public forum at each scheduled ordinary council meeting. Speakers can speak for up to 5 minutes, excluding questions. Request to speak at a public forum must be made to the Chief Executive and the Mayor, made at least 24 hours before the meeting, and must outline the items that will be addressed by the speakers. The chairperson has discretion to extend the speaker's allocated speaking time. Where there are more than 6 speakers presenting in the public forum, the chairperson may decrease the speaking time for presenters or waive the time requirement for requesting permission to speak in the public forum. The next point is that the procedure for public forums in Appendix 1 be adopted and updated on the council website, and that standing orders be updated accordingly and made available on the council website. So that is the full resolution. So do I have a move or a second of that, please? Councillor Burden, thank you.
I'll second.
Councillor Walker, thank you very much. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much, everybody, for that.
Just on that, Helen, this will be a living document as well, isn't it? So if we can, if there's anything to add during the year, we can add to make it better.
Yes. I think we need to with this, because we'll start and then see
How it goes.
Yeah, and adapt it from there. Yep, thank you. Right, next on the list of reports is the committee structure for the new triennium, pages 38 to 43 in your agenda, and we pass over to the Chief Executive to speak to the report, please.
Right, so this report is coming to you. I know there's been quite a bit of discussion between yourselves and but this report is coming to you as part of a sequence of processes that we need to do. As you know, all of the subcommittees and committees are dissolved as a result of the last triennium finishing, and then for a new triennium to start up, a new set of committees and structures can be adopted. So that meets our Local Government Act 2002. Today what we're presenting is the standing committees and the subcommittees, and also as a second part of this paper is the meeting schedule that's been prepared for the new year, taking on point Paul made about making sure that the meetings were spaced at a relatively good space in between, particularly over the New Year, Christmas New Year period. We've taken account to that. We've also lined it up with the auditors this time, so we're not out of step with when the auditors come in and when the CCOs are needing to provide background papers, etc. for us. So just so you know that there has been quite a bit of input into that meeting schedule to get it to that point. The terms of reference for each of the committees and the subcommittees will be adopted at the inaugural meeting of each committee. So that's why you're not seeing the terms of reference with them today. And what this will then trigger is in the December meeting, you will see the delegation come up to you so that you'll have those to approve. So that's the sequence that goes through. In terms of the standing committees and the subcommittees, those have been identified, and also we've provided a proposed diagram of actually the structure and who is currently being asked to be on those committees, and that's appendix 1.
Yeah, question, sorry, Councillor Clare.
Through the chair, I think I've made my views on committees well known. So I don't really have any issues with what's presented. Especially I'm just clarifying, so the Hokitika Wastewater Treatment Plant Project Committee is really just a placeholder because there's no scheduled meetings. Because I was concerned that that committee was just meeting for a meeting's sake, and that included potentially a consultant and taking money. So I'm assuming and heartened that that committee will be called upon as and when it might be required only.
And can I give an update on that in terms of that we have actually had that committee meet in terms of provide the finalised report, which is the end of their, if you like, task that they would do, and that finalised report will be coming up to the council, and I'm happy to either put it at the December meeting or we can put it at the January meeting. And that's consideration for the council to think about, do you wish to progress, essentially, do you wish to progress with the proposal, do you wish to wait until the CCO takes over? So those are the options we'll put up in the paper for you to consider, but at least you will have that part of the process completed, which was what that subcommittee was tasked to do. So that in itself has been done. So, but we left it there because it formed part of the structure.
Yeah, because obviously all this, another set of reforms makes us whole contingent on those.
My question was also related to that committee. My understanding is in the previous writing, that committee had more council representation on it. I see here that it's only the mayor and myself. I think we had more. Has that been reduced for some reason? Patrick, also Councillor Phelps and Councillor Casson on the committee.
That might be my area, I'm sorry.
I think it was a half split, half the iwi, half council.
Yes, it was.
So I would suggest that we put 2 more members on that committee.
Well,
No?
I think you can, but I think the reality is if you're going to consider the paper, which is that bit, once that paper is considered, this committee is different.
Yes.
It's just there because it needs to be there until you've had an opportunity to see the paper. So happy to do either, but just for you, really.
Yep. Thank you, Bob. And just on that too is the Chief Executive's Review Committee that will be stood up in December. So for the first review. So people can please note that we'll get out the diary date to you and set that in place. Does anybody have anything Paul?
Through your worship, what's happened to the proposal to kickstart the regulatory committee?
Do you want that now, or do you want that? Yep, okay, fine.
So I think when I picked up that piece of work that had been introduced, I think it's made the media today about why that subcommittee was dropped off as well. My understanding of it, and I'm happy to be corrected, was that there was quite a long tail of issues that needed to be heard from previous consenting and planning issues that management had not been able to address. It would be quite a long tail and quite a long period of time for those to be addressed. My understanding was that that subcommittee was put to be stood up to actually address those and to look going forward, because there was some, these are my words rather than going back to minutes, but there was some disquiet about how things were going forward at that time. When we looked at the new committees going forward for the new triennium, I conveyed to the Mayor that that tail of issues that had been outstanding had been resolved. They have been all resolved, but either between the Mayor and myself and management about how we'd address that. We've also got to a position where the consenting and planning team are now 100% compliant since July with their timeframe, so there is no lag between what's going to be expected if you put in a submission or if you don't. That was one of the issues, that perhaps the lag was an issue. That's not seeming to be the case. We've also addressed the fact that we're working with shared services, which hasn't been kicked off yet but will be, to look between Grey and Buller at how, in terms of our consenting, we can think about how we line ourselves up so that we, if we need to, that we can help, and they could help if we had an issue about lag or timing. So I recommended to the Mayor that in that case, it was my understanding that unless there was an issue to resolve that wasn't clear to me, that that had been addressed. And under the view that we don't want to have an unnecessary committee, it wasn't put forward.
If I can just follow on to that too, with having a new planning and regulatory manager who is exceptionally good in his role with vast experience, I think it was probably appropriate that council showed him some respect and giving him some space to settle into the role, take charge of the role and address any outstanding matters, which he has done admirably. I feel that myself personally, I feel that if we put that committee up at the moment, we've got no reason to base one on. And personally, I would like to give him the respect that he deserves in starting this new role and managing what we've been dealing with in the past, because he has already dealt with a lot of issues straight away. So I'll just go to Councillor Glenn.
Just quickly, yeah, through the chair, yes, I agree. Just to clarify, I'm pretty sure that committee never even met.
No, I didn't. No.
So we're not really losing.
No, you're quite right, quite right. Sorry, Paul.
Through your worship, but that may be a good reason to not go ahead with it. The whole point of that committee was that there was no forum, no place for people to raise their issues, and a lot of them was to do with the regulatory environment. I appreciate that a lot of those issues that were on the bubble a while back have been resolved. That's not to say there won't be others in the future. But the regulatory committee was a request of the council, was in the decision to not go ahead. That really should have come back to council to make. It was a council resolution.
On the last triennium, but everything becomes dissolved when the new term.
Not a motion to form a committee. I mean, there's good reason to not do it, but the decision should have come back to the council.
Well, that's something we can rectify. We need to have these matters corrected. But as far as any further issues go, I think they will be managed exactly how they've been since we've got our new planning regulatory manager here. And that is admirably, because anything that comes forward, people can make contact with myself and or Barb, as they already do. And he has been very straightforward in meeting with these people in person and dealing with the situation at that time. And we can't ask for better performance or service than that.
Through the chair, if that's the case, that there was a motion that was made that the council only need to do it through a proper process, then it's equally easy to write a paper to bring forward to the council outlining where the issues were, what's been resolved and what's the mitigation going forward. If you folk feel that that doesn't hit the mark, that's for your discussion, and then we can do it that way so that it completes that if that's required for the process. More than happy to do that. But it'll be essentially what I've just said. I would also highlight at that time, we've had a year without having a regulatory manager in place. And that was during that period too, which didn't help the process going forward.
I can see value in all the comments being discussed, said around the table. I think that we did push quite hard to get that committee back to life. And I think obviously, I understand that there's possibly no need for it now, but I think that the terms of reference are sitting there, we've done all that work to get it going. If we do need to stand it up, everything's there ready to go on paper, could come to council like that, and we can stand it, we can bring the committee back to life. I think that, possibly, it is.
I think I think you need to be clear about what is the purpose of that committee and why it's there, because there is a real risk in these committees that sometimes they can move into there's unintended consequences where you have almost, how can I say, almost like a kangaroo court position, which is born out of frustration, and we can have seen that happen, and I would want to avoid that at all costs. But I think that if we put the paper up and talk about the mitigation, then folk have a chance to decide one way or the other which way to go. Councillor Matthews, not very happy.
Not that I'm not very happy, yes, just that I'm just reaffirming that in actual fact, we as councillors fought hard for this committee, and there was pushback from management, but we fought and we've got the resolution on the books that we're going to form that committee. I'm just going through a matter of process, but that shouldn't just be overlooked. There was a resolution on the books, and it should be for the councils to decide to take it off the books.
Right, so we will work that through for the next council meeting and make sure we address this the right way. But also noted too is that at that time we had significant issues, backlogs, a lot of people out there, totally different management now, and yeah, we've got to take that in mind. So, are you happy if we bring that through to December? Rightio, thank you. And Barb's going to take note of that. Sorry, Councillor Maitland.
Sorry, through the chair, I actually quite like the idea of that committee and keeping it maybe not forward a little. But I was contacted recently by a ratepayer that had concerns directly down that line, had an ongoing issue for some months now, and he felt, or that person felt that they didn't have anyone to turn to as to how to move forward. And so I think there are still issues out there, and from my perspective, I think it's good for the public to have an intermediary that they can talk to, and I like the idea of councillors going to you, Barb, or you, Helen, about these issues, possibly rather than the committee idea, but I think it's still good to have that system in place if it is needed in the future.
If I can just on that, Councillor, is that anybody out there coming to you with an issue, is that you take the information and you forward it through to and it goes through to the essential department that issue is relevant to. And we are looking at the moment at constructing some form of record that an issue is recorded somewhere, so there is that feedback on resolution. Because nobody's going to get any issue resolved unless it goes to the right person to resolve it. And that is the role of Barb to oversee that as the Chief Executive and her staff to provide the information or go out and resolve the situation as they sometimes do. They have to go out and do a site visit, go and talk to that person on site to get their head around the situation. But unless the issue is passed on, it's not going to go anywhere, and that's the problem previously. And when they did pass information on, it wasn't acted on, so which is why we ended up with the problem. But we're in a different era now. Councillor Walker.
The Chair, I believe you mentioned that you're quite open to bringing these people in and having sit-down conversations with staff, right? Yeah. And that's probably, they want to feel heard. That's probably the most efficient form.
Just got to be aware that you can't bring everything in, but significant ones that need that kind of resolution. Yes.
So first come to you guys, and then you would invite them.
Otherwise, there's going to be no other work going on. But so we've just got to recognise what needs that versus what doesn't. That can be resolved using.
I think,
Process.
I think from my perspective, as I have the responsibility to make sure that it's dealt with, I see you folk as the sort of temperature gauges, the conduit out there, because I can't be. Some people will come to us directly, but not always. So what I would encourage you, if you do have areas like that, send them through to me, and more than happy that we can make sure that they're addressed. More importantly is that we feed back to you about what has happened. And often in the past what I've done is had the councillor and the person in the room and sat there and said, look, what is it we need to do, where do we need to go? And then pointed them to the start. And that sometimes helps too, because I'm really conscious of the fact that the people, the ratepayers out in the areas, they expect you, if they've asked you to do something, then the onus becomes on you. So I'd like them to see that, they're involved and part of it. So I'm happy to do that, but I think the thing is that we just need to know. And once we know, the team are really open, and that goes across all of the teams, but the teams are really open to that. And sometimes it's just they don't know who to contact. They just don't. So really happy for that to happen, because it makes a difference. If you can get early and have the conversation, the angst goes away from it.
Okay. So is there any further questions around the committee structure for the new triennium? We'll be sick of that. So the resolution is that the report be received, that council adopts the committee structure and membership as outlined in Appendix 1 of the report, and that council adopts a proposed meeting schedule for January 2026 to December 2026 as provided in Appendix 2 of the report. And there will be 10.4, Natasha, that a paper to council listed in the planning and committee.
Well, a paper that will provide some opportunity for a decision.
Yes, for a decision, sorry.
On the substance.
For discussion and decision on something, potentially, or future of. Future, yep. So can I have a word for a seconder, please, on that resolution? Councillor Maitland, thank you. Councillor Glett, all in favour? Carried. Thank you everybody for that. You happy with that, 10-4? Okay, next on the agenda we have the financial performance report from our Chief Financial Officer, Stephen, please, and that's pages 44 to 57 in your agendas. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Your Worship. So it's the financial report for October of the Council's position. I'm aware as well that obviously people may not be familiar with looking at financial numbers, and particularly with potentially Council numbers if they have, so I wonder whether Council might find it helpful if I just ran through the report and just quickly touched on each item to kind of explain why it's here or what it is for. If Council thought that was useful, then I can do that for you. So you've got the report in your document. So the sustainability report basically, and the 2 pages that follow are based on local government requirements to report, either from the Local Government Act itself or through LGFA, so Local Government Funding Association. But basically what I'm saying for the month is that we had 12.9 million of revenue with 12.9 million of expenditure. So basically we had a break-even position, so there was no deficit or surplus. I mean, there was a slight surplus of 4,000. The key variances, so this necessarily, in this case it almost does, not necessarily that these numbers would add up to the exact difference. We don't look at variances that are $25,000 or less, or where there's timing. So sometimes in reports in the future you might see that these numbers don't add up to the variance. That's simply because we don't look at, it could be several small items that are adding up to those changes. The main difference in this month, as you'll see, actually relates to rates. This is actually to do with water meters. So water meter, obviously, metered water supplies, usage will increase, obviously, coming to summer months. So it's basically just an issue with phasing of the budget. So the budget's not being phased as finessed as well as it maybe could have been. There's another small few variances. The only other one really to pick up on is the swap variances. So interest rate swaps, sorry, apologies if people already know, but this is where the council tries to protect itself against movements in interest rates. So it borrows money at fixed rates and then pays money back at varying rates. And the theory is that over time, it should all equal out to zero. So if there's a swing against us in terms of interest rates going up or down, the council's position is maintained. What tends to happen is you see variances at the start of the periods, and then over time, they kind of close in, so they become to par, so they go back to zero. So what it actually means in terms of the council, though, this is not cash lost or gained. It's not an impact on rates. It's just a financial accounting instrument at this time because it's a recognised liability or loss. So we're basically saying at the moment we believe our interest rates when they mature, and that we have multiple rates over multiple periods, that at the moment we will be short 420,000 against what we actually budgeted. But what we should expect is next month we could see a swing the other way, or it will come down to zero eventually. So at the moment, it's something to keep an eye on, and we do obviously track it track it on a monthly basis. But it's not a cash movement, and it's not an impact rates. It's an accounting statement. The other number relates to road and maintenance. This is just, again, timing within the budget that we've just had to do more work than we planned for. So really, we're kind of looking at timing differences and interest rate swaps. So the reason the council didn't actually hit its planned target of a 619,000 surplus. And the next couple of points are just these again. I said these are the items that we have to report on. So basically, the first one is obviously looking at rates to operating revenue. So we have a target. So it says target NA. The target is actually 64%. So that's should have been on there. So it's 64.9% of our target. So that we obviously are trying to bring in more money from areas other than just rates. And at the moment, the council is hitting that target. Balanced budget ratio, I mean, it's quite a thing, but basically we just need to bring in what we spend. So this month we actually did, as I said, we did actually forecast a surplus, but we didn't actually go into that. The next one relates to interest rate revenue. So we have a target that we can't spend more than 25% of our rates revenue on interest, which is we actually spend 3%. So although I appreciate debt is people's idea of how much debt is good or bad varies depending on situations, but in terms of the way the council monitors, we're well below kind of debt levels and interest repayment levels that the targets we have to hit. The same for interest operating revenue. We have to maintain that net interest is 2% of operating revenue at the moment. Our target is less than 10. So again, we're sitting comfortably below that. Both of these are policies that we, under our liability management policy, these are targets we have to meet due to local government funding. And the final one, which I'm looking to reword slightly better, basically looks at how much debt we can hold in relation to how much cash and liquid assets, or assets that we can spend quickly. The ratio target we're aiming for is greater than 110%. So 130 is, in this case, is a good thing that we're higher, not a bad thing. So this is, we're exceeding our target. And basically, to break this down, what it's actually saying is if you held $1 million of debt, the target is 10%, you should hold $100,000 of cash or cash assets. So it's basically trying to say you have to hold 10% of whatever your debt is, you need to have 10% of cash available. It's just to make sure that we don't run out of money, obviously, and that we can service our debts. So all of these the council currently abides by, and we have other Local Government Funding Act amounts that we have to stick to as well, and that's something the Risk Insurance Committee also looks at, so more information on those. The statement of comprehensive revenue expenditure, I don't propose to run through. Hopefully all of the headings are pretty straightforward. The one thing I would note is that fees and charges revenue is actually running higher. That's actually due to more work that we're actually doing on building consents and regulation, which obviously is a chargeable service that the council provides, so that actually brings in more revenue. And said the changes, the only significant variance is on that other expense, and that relates to the interest rate swaps that were on the previous page. Just some commentary on the page after, so I propose to go through that. Again, just a few graphs for you showing expenditure and revenue, so you can have an idea of where we derive our money from and also how we're spending it. Actually, it's probably worth noting at this point, this is the report that the previous council was using. I would like to make changes to it and to update the information that we provide to council, so we provide more detailed information, and also to speak to you to find out what you would like to see as well. So that we're reporting, as I said, there are some things we have to statutorily report, but it would be good to find out from council what they would like to see. So again, maybe, well, this is getting longer, but maybe that January meeting again, we could have a look and think about what we could potentially add into the reporting. So I'm proposing we'll stick with this for December, and then in January look to issue a new report. The next page looks at debtors. So obviously, this is money that is owed back to the council. The most significant number, so this doesn't include rates, by the way, sorry, this is not non-rates debtors. The main number is $1.6 million, which is actually grant money that actually relates to the GCB Lewis Airport, which is kind of mentioned that we've now actually drawn down funding. So we're just waiting for funding to come in, and there's some final fund claims waiting. It's a comparison to last year, and we're actually tracking fairly similar in terms of how much debt we've got that we need to collect back from our customers. Over the page is the rate debtor. This number kind of jumps around a lot, which obviously as you're all rate payers as well, you appreciate because the rate quarter went out in October, sorry. So then we obviously see a significant increase in the amount of money that's owed to us. That then obviously reduces as the quarter goes on. So we obviously went into the month with 664,000 outstanding, and it ended with just over 5 million, which again is because we raised 6.6 million worth of rates invoices within the month. I have noted that this time last year we were sitting at 4.3 versus 5, so it has gone up by 656,000. So I'm working with the team to understand why. We appreciate that there's cost of living crisis and people are struggling to pay their debts, but obviously we can't see this to continue to increase. So I'm working with the team, we have a credit collectors to work with them, and also working with our agencies to see how we can make sure that the rate money is coming back into us. So that's something that is on my priority to look at as well. Next page, sorry if I'm rushing through this. The next page is just looking at our debt position. So again, it's pretty straightforward. We're in October at the moment, and we're hitting exactly as we are. I mean, our debt is exactly where we expect it to be. We actually hold debt on behalf of our CCOs, so that does actually form part of the council's covenants. So when the council has to meet its debt liability ratios, it has to also include the CCOs within it. At the moment, as I said, we have plenty of headroom and we are within it, and we work closely with the CCOs to understand their debt needs and how they want to refinance their debt. Again, that's something that we can look at, and also the Risk and Assurance Committee. And then the final page is on capital expenditure. This is somewhere where I think, personally, and I'm suspecting you also would like to see more information. So at the moment, we're basically just showing our total budget for the year and how it's broken down. So obviously I'd like to start producing more information in terms of forecasts on where we expect to be, if there are delays or if there's potential overspends. And I've always used in the past exception reporting, which I think helps, which should be explanatory, but it's basically, we don't talk about it unless there's an issue. So we'll just flag to you. So if we're silent on a subject, there's no problem with it, but we'll raise where there's potential issues on the capital projects. And that goes for all of reporting as well.
Thank you,
So
Stephen.
I've got to rush through it a little bit, we're conscious of time.
No, it's very important, and it's equally important that everybody sort of gets a feel for these reports. But thank you, and also what you were offered before. I was watching the faces here, and I didn't see anybody's skull. I saw delight on what you were offering, so thank you for that. I think everybody's going to be very pleased with where you're going to take the financial reporting too, so greatly thankful and appreciative of that. Councillor Burton.
Thanks, Stephen. Great to just run through quickly with that explanation, and especially for newer members who haven't seen this before. I look forward to the new reporting format. I think that's something I'll be keen to see, and I'll have a bit of a talk to you about my expectations and a few things I'd like to see, and share, having some clarity with the public about where we're sitting. So, yeah, thank you.
All good? Councillor Maitland?
And I'm all good.
Councillor Walker?
Don't have any questions. I'm looking forward to January.
Yes.
Yeah.
Refinancement.
I think, yeah, it's just great. It's good to have some openness to change in the senior leadership team, so it's awesome.
Good comment. Carol, Councillor Martin?
But early days when you were standing with it.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Clegg?
Yes, through the chair, thank you, refreshingly different. Leave it at that. I just want to check one thing. One of the issues with revenue that has come up repeatedly is variation of water metering.
Yes.
And just be careful here, but there was an issue highlighted in the audit report regarding a particular billing issue. Has that issue been resolved?
Sorry.
Sorry, Stephen's looking at me because
Yeah.
working through that, so it's in progress.
Yeah, because it says that this variance is expected to reduce over time, so
Yes.
I'm picking that code for that problem going away.
Yes. No, yes.
Councillor Valera?
Through the chair, nothing to add on that, thank you.
Councillor Munns?
Yeah, through the chair, yeah, thank you for that, and thanks for that vote with us.
Councillor Mackenzie?
Through the chair, I've got a couple of points for Stephen. I know he's just started in October, so swaps are useful for managing risk, but I think we need to carefully assess timing and market trends to avoid unnecessary paper losses. I wasn't sure if they came through, decisions were made before you started.
Yeah, so through the chair, that we're locked into quite a lengthy process of when we've got them all maturing. There are dates set so that nothing matures at a specific time. So there's, apologies, I don't remember off the top of my head, but there are covenants that we can't have certain amounts of debt maturing at the same periods and swaps maturing at the same period to prevent exactly that. But at the moment, there's a risk. We use an external provider, so we use PwC, and we meet with them on a monthly basis. So the next one, I'll be able to get a full list of kind of where we're at and then report back on the position and what movement we've got and when we can next kind of make new decisions. But at the moment, unfortunately, it's locked into quite long periods.
And in your report, you also said resource consents that have doubled since last year. Are the increases primarily driven by RFIs, complex applications, monitoring costs? What's driving it?
Yeah, so through the chair, speaking to my colleagues, so to Leo, new general manager there, so is that it seems to be both. Its complexity is driving a lot of it, but also volume. So we are seeing just higher uptakes of it. You actually see it in the annual report for last year as well. The same thing happened, that we can see revenue is stated higher for other revenue, which is where you would find consents. And then we have additional staff costs because obviously we need to resource it to actually provide them. But it's a mixture of volume and complexity.
Yeah. So they obviously pay the deposits. So a lot of these resource consents are going beyond the deposit level.
Yes. Yeah.
What are we doing to help applicants in that regard?
Through the chair, that's been an issue that the team has been addressing, particularly now that we've got everybody on board with it and have a regulatory manager. But the team itself has been working at making sure that when people do a consent, they sit down and talk with folk as they come in, so they can highlight quickly, look, this is looking quite complex, or there might be some missing things, so they're not leaving it to, they're actually proactively having that conversation with people as they come through. And I think there's some other processes that the consent, and particularly in planning to a lesser degree, have been doing so that folk understand where they are in the process, and if there are going to be issues, try and have that conversation with related parties in the room. So there's been quite a bit of activity around that to try and help them. But I think it's an indication that there are a lot more coming through than previously. We've also got a little bit of a complication that we have got the TPP consideration of the operative plan, so that's slowed down a little bit. It's not, it hasn't quite come to fruition, but it's a work in progress.
Through the last point, the report notes 657,000 increase in rate status. Can you elaborate on the support and flexibility measures we put in place to help rate payers going forward?
Yeah, so through the chair, we have our rating policy kind of sets out our where we can, I've forgotten the correct term in New Zealand, but we're basically a rebate on the rates, so that we do have processes on that. So I know one of the things we've discussed is going out to the communities more to make them aware, especially maybe down south and up to north. Obviously in Hokitika we can come here and we have lots of signs in council about these are what's on offer for you. Maybe that's not so clear in the townships. So that we can kind of go out and make that clear to them of what there is there. So there is support available through the rating policy that council adopted in the last triennium. So we have got levers we can pull on them to help them out.
We can pay monthly instead of just.
Yeah, so yeah, we have monthly instalments. We have obviously quarterly, and then we can at our discretion. If somebody's struggling off this particular arrears, then we can offer a longer term payment plan.
Good, thank you.
Good questions. Thank you, Stephen. Thanks. Paul? I've just got one question, and it's probably more directed towards Earl. With the waste disposal levies being 54k over due to the higher than expected tourist numbers and escalations, we've had this before and we had it last year, so I would take that with the tourism numbers growing again this year, we're going to see that figure around 4, or are we making adjustments with the budgets going forward?
Through the chair, but it's potential. We have increased our recycling methodology and quantity, so that should even itself out.
Right, okay, so we've made the adjustments in the budgets going forward to manage that as well, so, okay, yeah, sorry, I was thinking out there. Okay, thank you for that. Any further with other commentaries? Anybody got anything further? Councillor Maitland has.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. In regarding to the rates demands, could the notification be sent out closer to the date that the payment's due? I think at the moment it comes out about a couple of weeks before the payment is due. And I'd like to see it, maybe even a text reminder or something like that, a couple of days before, because I know with my filing system, you know what I'm saying, but I think it'd be good to have the notifications closer to the time of the due date, because you know, we've got busy lives and sometimes it's pulls us to list.
Potentially something that could be looked at.
So through the chair, I think what we could be doing is doing a lot more in the newsletter public review space about this is the time frame for the rates, and you don't really see it publicly again where they are. And then take your point about trying to give prompts to people, but I wonder if we could do that by doing some of the announcements, like, you know, this installment is due on this date, and we do it a little bit further out and then bring it back up. So if you haven't paid, we can also make use of the web page and also the Facebook. Like, you know, if you're a rate payer in the Western District, your rates are now due for the next instalment on this date, and then you can it's a little bit more there. We just need to think about what we've got as emergencies.
And just to follow up to your question there, Ewan, about people understanding or knowing what opportunities are available, it's something I've talked to Barbara and Stephen about, in that when we go out to talk to communities at any time, it's a conversation that we can have as well, but also with looking at the potential rates review, there's a couple of people that are key out in the community that are quite key to bring in, that have quite a wide reach on issues and what else is available to assist these people, whether it's a budgeting system or what. But if we can mitigate and bring together and be the bridge that's helping our community, taking some stress off the people. So yeah, good conversation to be having with them.
Actually, just through the chat, actually just made me think about our rate rebates actually went through in November, so that would be another reason why it would have helped higher. Actually, just we actually process the rebates before the next rent installment is due. So where people are due rebates, they will have received the money. So it's try and time it so we give them their rebate and then we ask them for the next. But at least we kind of do the rebate in advance so that we don't ask for it and then give them the rebate. So again, that would have reduced the balances at the time as well.
Anything further, Christina? All right, if everybody's happy with that, the resolution is that the financial report for 31st October 2025 be received. Either move or a seconder, please. Councillor Maitland, Councillor Mackenzie, all in favour?
Yeah, I'll say.
All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you everybody very much for that. Thank you, Stephen. It's very refreshing. It's exciting of where we're going with the reporting. And yeah, it's great having you here with us and in this position. Greatly appreciated. So next we move over to Earl with the notice paper for the Lake Canary development. Please, Earl, the floor is yours, General Manager, District Assets.
Good afternoon, Your Bishop, councillors. I will take the paper as read. The paper was brought to, the item was brought to a paper because it had some questions regarding E. coli and contamination of Lake Canary. Basically, from the work that we do through the TTP, through a regulatory building consenting process, we are compliant with whatever we do. However, the lake itself does remain responsibility of the Westland Regional Council. I'd like to thank Olivia Anderson for her part and helping me research into this, and prepared to take some questions. So,
all right, we'll take some questions because hands already up. Stephen, and I'll come back to you. Greg. Sorry, Councillor Glegg.
Through the chair, so I'm trying to think back. This issue was, I thought, wasn't just about what the current water quality was, it was more about a risk, potential risk in that lake, potentially as a result of the existing housing that exists there and their legacy kind of septic tanks and soak pits and whatever. So, although this report says as of today, and the water testing is okay, I'm just all concerned that there's a risk there. And is this a risk that should be in the risk register? Because this is our main drinking source. And if yes, have we done any investigative work into the state of those sewerage systems and those existing batches, etc., around there, that predate the current consenting kind of arrangements? I just think that that was the theme of the discussion about the risk at Lake Canary was the potential long-term problem of that.
Through the chair, yes, I've had discussions with regional council regarding them increasing their testing around stormwater and which will catch any of those leakages into the stormwater network. They've said that yes, they have got a plan that they're bringing in force. Unfortunately, they haven't. That isn't finalised as yet. So I'll be working with them with regard to other building existing infrastructure that's there.
Because who's liable? If one of those old batch tanks, soak bricks, start leaking into the lake, it's all very well saying that the regional council is responsible for the water quality, but they weren't resource consented by the regional council. So there's probably a grey area. So is it our liability if they start leaking? Has the council got to get involved in fixing these problems if we find that the prime water source has been contaminated only one day?
Well, to be fair, I'm not a building expert, but I do know that private systems are a responsibility of the operator. So
for how your own septic tank system sits within your property.
Then you have the issue of trying to identify where's the source coming from.
Yes, but you end up in that, which, you know, with that cycle, it's the same as the earthquake standard. I considered a building in 1933 that was fine with the earthquake standards. Now that the earthquake standards has been changed, it's been updated. It's not the council's responsibility to keep updated.
The other issue I've got, just to finish off, is although the regional council carries out their own testing, I understand that there's other testing done up there by the Cawthron Institute on behalf of DOC, because part of their resource consent for their toilet pipe requires independent testing to be submitted to the regional council. And my understanding is that some of those tests have actually failed. They've got 3 test sites, and there have been issues with that structure. So that toilet block, their consent conditions, they went inland into some field tile disposal area, but that still occasionally doesn't meet the testing levels. So I'd be interested to see if the regional council can share some of the other testing data from the lake, so we can get another perspective.
Through the chair.
Thank you, Stephen. That's some really good research you've done there and a very valid point. And I think there's a follow-up to that. I think, you know, that council can.
But I think there's a risk, and it needs to at least be put on the risk register.
Yes.
And we need to start thinking about it.
Yeah. And we perhaps potentially need regional council to come and talk to us about the management, the testing program and everything else, because it is our town water supply. We don't want to be reactive with something going wrong. We don't have the time. We need to be proactive and have the confidence that all the
Well, we could just have a little shake up there and disturb the whole structure, land structure.
It is that's one of our water sources. It's not.
It's not the only, I know, but it is critical. Councillor Maitland, then I'll come over to these councillors.
For me, one of the big concerns with the lake is the rising water temperatures in the summer. It gets really warm, which is conducive to the proliferation of bacteria, and also I'm concerned that if there's further development of the lake, if the sewage systems are actually earthquake proof, that they go into an earthquake sort of standard that's got to be suitable for where they're located, and also the fact that the development that is out there at the moment is actually on a slip, on a single fan from a slip, which to me is sort of not a good position to put development in, but that's, once again, there's another risk, especially if we're going to get higher rainfall, that some of these, even though they're consented septic tanks, they could end up being a problem in the future. Yeah, they're my concerns with it.
Thank you. And I'm taking some notes on these because they are some comments that we need to follow through. Councillor McKenzie, and I'll come to you, Paul.
Through the chair, I picked up on Earl's comment about homeowners being responsible for their own systems. A lot of people that live out in Lake Canary, because I walked that whole area, there's only 9 people that actually live there permanently or something or other. So nearly everybody else, it's a holiday home. And if they're coming from Canterbury or big cities where they're onto a main system, and through my role in real estate, a lot of people don't know that you need to service them every year or depending on the number of people in the household. So I think it would be socially responsible to buzz out in the rates demands a reminder that you're responsible for your septic tank out there, and warn them that they need maintenance. Because I sold a property where it had been maintained for 10 years and we managed to get somebody to fix it, but it could have blown, is what the consultant that empties them services and says. And if they're older, concrete ones, they're probably naturally breaking down anyway.
Paul.
Through your worship, so, yeah, you almost kind of see that this shouldn't stop here with this report. The septic tanks are, is a real issue in other places, and I can't say, well, it wouldn't be also at Lake Canary. And the problem with septic tanks, as I understand it, is in particular is with batches, the likes where they're used inconsistently. They're used erratically over the year, and then all of a sudden there's a great big flush of them in the summertime. Yes. And in Greymouth, I know that that was has been fingered as the number one source of the continued, still to this day, contamination of Sawyers Creek, is because of all the residential properties that are on septic tanks. So how is it that Lake Canary suddenly doesn't have any problem with leaking septic tanks, but everywhere else does? They fail, and that's the nature of septic tanks. And that was the whole purpose of this discussion, was to have a round table, which doesn't seem to be and the whole purpose was to get around the table and have these things out so we come up with a plan, and there should be a plan and an agreement with the regional council, for instance, to sunset these septic tanks. You know, that you can't just have them in the ground yet forever and ever. Amen. You know, that there has to be a finite term for them. They have to be modernised at some point in the future. And if we don't start now, we'll never get anywhere. If we just roll over and say, oh, well, they've been there since 1930, so we'll just, you know, it's not our problem. It is our problem.
It is. And you're quite right, Paul. But this is the first step on from that, from when Mr. Breeze, who's here with us today, brought this to us originally. This is the report that comes back, and from there, I mean, I've already got it noted. We need to understand the historical consenting process that went on with that development, what changes have come through the RMA that have changed that. Are we still operating under a mixed breed of RMA changes? We need a report from the Regional Council regarding their testing, and it'd be good to have a feedback from the test with DOC to get a full understanding of that. Regardless of whether it's our main water supply, secondary water supply, we've got a backup supply. It is a critical water supply, and we need to have the confidence that it is being managed well. It's a different sort of a development to something that's sitting the racecourse or at Tekatai or whatever. And also too, I think that the note about responsibility of septic tank management, you know, needs to go out in our comms as far as rates and whatever goes, because, you know, that is a requirement, and it does slip by a lot of people, especially the holiday owners, because I think we're only there for 3 weeks a year, so it's going to, instead of 5-year clean, it's going to be good for 10. You know, the last thing we want to be is having a situation where we're having to you know, close Canary, especially in the heat of summer when it's packed, because we've got a situation there. So I think with that, the consensus here in the room is that we need to do a lot more work on this. This is a serious situation that we want to be able to manage up front, and we need the information that supports that. So, Bill, thank you for your paper, but it has, and it was always going to lead to these further requests for that.
Yeah, through the chair, I'll confer with my colleagues who are specialists in this area.
Yep. Thank you, I think so. And if we can note, you know, that perhaps if we've got a bit of a historical understanding of the consent and what that development was allowed for, because I mean, if that development can actually develop to its full potential, that's a lot of extra tanks that are going to be there. You know, what is the risk factor now versus when that was first started? Is it particular changed? I'd really like Regional Council to report to us on what their testing management is, and also that correlation through to DOC with their testing and results as well. So if we can, December potentially could be too soon for all that. Yeah, okay, so if we may put that on the agenda for the first council meeting next year, that could be a problem too, because everybody's on holiday.
Through the chair, see our Regional Council.
Yes, so that's fine, any problems, give me a whistle, but yeah, so Francois, do you want to? No? Okay, so.
Through the chair, I was just going to say, perhaps December, we could at least get the regional council to answer questions. And maybe get Earl in here, but I'm guessing Earl's gonna go be the liaison with the regional council.
Through the chair, I'll be liaising with regional council here.
Yes.
And my new colleagues who are experts in this area.
So with that, we'll put that into, we're saying February, aren't we?
Well, I hope, through,
Yes, so we'll let you have those conversations and come back to us with what we're looking at and when, rather than tie you down now, because we are at that critical time of the year where getting people to front up with the reports is difficult. So, yes.
through the chair, local media announcements could probably might help.
True, very true, actually. And with that, we are being proactive with this, and we're looking at managing anything or the potential of anything up front, but it's also understanding the nature of that development and the risks and future pressure points. So I think we're going about it the right way. But I hear what you're saying regarding the media. Stephen, Councillor Peach.
Well, I was just, aside from what I understand as some failures, I think that we need to make it clear that the water is fine.
It's fine, absolutely.
It's fine. It's good to drink.
Yes. That's as pristine as it ever has been.
It's just the ongoing risk.
Yes. It's putting those crosses and checks in place and having that surety. So is everybody quite happy with where we're at with that? And Earl, you've got the notes on where we're going with that. Okay, so with that, the resolution is that the voting paper for Lake Canary development be received. Do I either move from second on that, please, with a blue campaign in place for Earl to report back to council. Councillor Martin, Councillor Maitland, thank you. All in favour?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much for that.
Worship, may I please speak briefly?
It's not locked in to do that, Mr. Breeze.
I understand that, but there's a couple of things I would like to say. I'd like to say thank you to everyone in this room who's given their time to help make this town a better place. And I'm a third-year campaigner for Lake Canary. Mr. Stephen Gillett is the only person who's ever sat in a room and actually reinforced what I've had to say. I have major concerns after having 27 years in rescue services about what's going to happen at Lake Canary. I have a map that's sitting here. Everybody in this room should have major concerns by looking at it. It's geoscience. It's not rubbish. That site should never be happening. The people on Stewart Street, if we have it, that when the old one fault does break, depending on what the weather is, within weeks of that, that site is going to be demolished. Apart from that, I could spend an hour speaking to everybody here because it's very comprehensive. It's not rubbish. But I have to excuse me. I've got to go to a meeting. And thank you very much for helping everyone in this town. What we have out there, it's a nightmare. I actually phoned Chris Pullen at the Westland area today, and I expressed my concerns once again. I've been a long-term campaigner with Chris when he was working for the regional council, and once again, I said your Chinese owners need to be concerned if they have a hint of any contaminants being in that lake. Globally, our product is demolished, and this town is demolished if something bad happens at that dairy company. Thank you very much for your time. I do appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Breeze. And for those of you that don't know, Mr. Breeze is the person and his wife brought this to council out of serious concern. So this is the man that sits at the base of this. He's passionate about it, he's deeply concerned about it, and I think it's excellent.
I have nothing to gain other than I love living in this place. It's fantastic. We live in paradise here. There's massive concerns with Lake Canary. I'm heading out there because I know you're concerned I'm going to take over. But if anyone's seen that geoscience map sitting in there, it's a nightmare. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. Right.
I just want to get actually noted that we do have another water intake. Never had any issues with water coming out of the lake. We don't have major companies having to be concerned about the quality of our water because it's fine.
And we have the valves and everything systems in place that if something's there, that's closed off and we are fully engaged with the other, don't we?
through the chair, like, we've got lake, then we've got treatment plant and tap, so.
We've got river, we have a river intake as well, which makes switch over almost instantaneously, so.
Thank you for that and for that clarification. Right, so the resolution now is to go into public excluded, and after a move and a seconder, please, so that we can do just that at 3:15 p.m. Councillor Gillett, thank you very much. Councillor Maitland, thank you very much for that. So we are now resolved that council moves into public excluded section at 3:15 precisely. Thank you, everybody.